You were telling me that one time you got handcuffed and everything. What was the
Yeah,
deal with that?
that was like when I was 16. I didn't even know how that one really started.
Welcome to Champions Battlefield, the show where we meet with champions to discuss their story of overcoming adversity. I'm your host, Trevor Carroll. With us in studio is my co-host, Jama Golshani. And in studio with us today, we have current BFL amateur featherweight champion, Taylor Christopher, who's going to tell us a little bit more about his story.
Hey Taylor, thanks for coming out, man. I appreciate having you in the studio here today. Spend some time getting to know you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me out. Appreciate the opportunity to get out here with you two today. Yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome, man. Were you teaching today?
No, I was actually training today. I had a couple
Nice.
sessions earlier on in the day here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do teach at Coquitlam, right?
Yeah. So my older brother Ryan, and my striking coach Blake Lorette actually have a gym out in Coquitlam there, and I teach cardio kickboxing classes there, here and there. And I was also teaching the teens class last year there as well.
Nice. What was that like, teaching teens?
It was a cool experience. My first time kind of really working with teenagers, so it was interesting. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. You get to see some of these kids roll in, really to themselves, not talking too much.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't see too much confidence
The
in
whole
them.
teenager thing, right?
Yeah, exactly, right. And then, a few weeks in, you can see them starting to open up with the other kids, starting to, hit pads with the other kids,
Yeah.
joke around. And you can really see, what martial arts does for them over time,
Yeah.
which was cool. That was a really, neat experience for me, and getting to see them compete and, win medals and all the smiles and stuff like that. So that was definitely, it was a good
That's
experience.
awesome. We really want to get into that and see how martial arts has helped you and has helped, and then you've seen help other kids and other students come through. But before we do that, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you were born, brought up?
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up in Coquitlam and Port Coquitlam. I actually lived amongst the two cities, my whole life. My parents moved around a lot between the two, back and forth sort of thing. That they liked flipping houses and doing that sort of thing. So I had an awesome childhood growing up. I had two amazing parents. They did everything they could for my brother and myself.
So just the two kids, Ryan and you?
Yeah, just me and my brother Ryan,
Nice,
who's
yeah.
6 years the elder of me. A good childhood. Had a little bit of a anger issue growing up, sort of thing. I was pretty good in school and stuff like that, but definitely had a little bit of an edge to me, for sure, growing
We'll
up.
talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, describe the anger issue
Yeah.
for us, because sometimes I get angry when the bag of chips doesn't open up for me.
Yeah.
What's yours like?
Yeah, well, back then, I think it was probably slightly more than just, struggling with the old chips. I struggled, socially a bit. I found myself in situations with kids and stuff like that, and I wasn't the greatest at being able to kind of resolve situations with words. I would usually get stumped up and feel uncomfortable, and usually that sort of thing would lead me to getting angry and kind of lashing out. And that definitely did get me into some situations growing up as a kid, and even throughout my teenage years for sure as well. So,
When was your first fight?
I
As a kid.
I had like some issues in elementary school. I had like in elementary school, we had little tussles and stuff like that. I had with some of the kids, that pick on me a bit or whatever, but nothing too crazy. My first real fight would probably have been in middle school. I had this guy kind of, same idea, kind of, jabbing at me and
Just
PE
rubbing
and
you the
stuff like
wrong
that.
way.
Yeah, and I never knew how to deal with it, and never told anyone. And usually, when that would happen back then I would just kind of store it up, and then eventually I just kind of would snap, and that's exactly what happened. And I ended up, kind of getting a good little hand on him, and got in trouble with school a little bit there. So that was kind of my first, experience with that. I think so.
And the last one?
The last one, it would probably be in my, my younger years here, but
Yeah.
not too long.
Yeah,
20
you were
years.
telling me that one time you got handcuffed and everything. What was the
Yeah,
deal with
that was like when I was 16. I didn't even know how that one really started. It was this older fellow. I think he was like 20 or something, and he was at our teenage hall party. One of these girls was throwing or whatever, and I had this girl I was seeing at the time, and he was kind of being, obnoxious to her, and I just kind of said something, and he was being a real douche, and I kind of same thing, got in front of everyone, was all awkward, and then ended up just kind of getting mad, and ended up into a fight, and then the cops came, kind of just pulled us out. Nothing really happened of that. They just said, hey, kind of go on your way. I got my shots in on him, so he kind of got the worst of it. So I was fine, and that's kind of how it went there. So
that's a common problem. Anger issues is I've had it myself.
Yeah.
And sort of learning to deal with it could be challenging. A lot of people
sure.
grow up. I mean, you were lucky that you managed to get out of it and be able to control it. A lot of people don't do that and end up in jail over and over again. There's, just ruin their lives entirely, because when you end up going down a path, then you're meeting the wrong people, and those wrong people kind of escalate the situation for you, right?
Absolutely.
So what was it for you? How did you, if you can kind of parse it out, how was it? How did you kind of get out of that?
Yeah, so those situations kind of still occurred growing up. I think what really was leading me to those situations was I was just not able to, like I said, able to use my communication skills to get through it. But not only that, I was not a confident guy growing up as well. I think some of that had to do with it. And then when I started training martial arts, I think that kind of switched around for me. It kind of made me come into my own and kind of really figure out who I was as a person. So when people do take these jabs at you, it doesn't really affect you anymore,
because you have the self-confidence.
Exactly, you know, right? Who you are. You're not this little guy who's like not confident anymore. That all these things are gonna send you into a state of depression for a month. Like, you know what I mean? So you know who you are, and I find that martial arts really, really does bring that part of out of you. It really does lead you down the path to finding out kind of who you are as a person, and bringing that side out of you. So
I remember as a kid growing up practicing martial arts, I had a very similar experience, but there was one added thing, and that was I had no idea who the hell this guy in front of me was. Like, I was like, this guy could just kick my head off.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I was like, I'm not going to get into this with this guy. I better walk away, right? It's safer that way, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But so if there's a kid, teenager listening to this, watching this, and they're at that point in time, in that state that you were in before you figured it out. Obviously, you said you went the path of martial arts and you figured it out. But is there like right now, right? If someone does something to you on the street, you probably sort of can see your temperature rise inside as you're getting
for sure
at some point in time you're going, okay, I'm walking away from this, right? So if someone is in that position and they're getting angry and they're fighting and they're lashing out and doing that stuff, what kind of advice would you have for them? What can they do to help themselves? Obviously the martial arts is there and they can do that, but outside of that, what would you say?
That's a great thing to think about. I wouldn't be able to answer for everyone. I could just kind of relate to for me personally. And I think what really is the difference for me was that if I'm on the street now and someone is doing those sort of things to me, it doesn't actually make my temperatures rise anymore. Because, like, for instance, growing up as a kid, I was short and I was like, a little overweight and that sort of thing. So when I'm already kind of like insecure and stuff like that. So when people are doing these jabs at you, it's kind of just reassuring that insecurity sort of thing, right? So then that's what really made me lash out, whereas now people can say all this stuff, but I know who I am, so no matter what you say, it's not going to make my temperature rise. I'm probably just going to laugh at you and then walk away. Like, I'm not going to care what you say. It doesn't matter. You have nothing to do with my life. Like, if you say what you want, you can have your opinion, but...
So it's more of a get to know themselves, know who they are.
To grow as a person, I think it's mostly the growth and and it opens your eyes. I think that's the main thing that martial arts had swapped around for me and really changed in me, and I think that's how I was able to grow out of that kind of phase in my life, sort of thing. So
when you were working with the other teens and stuff, did you see anybody that maybe reminded you of yourself when you were like, because that wasn't really that long ago. You're about like 22, 23?
Yeah, so probably about 20, 21, I still was, like that, had a little bit of anger and stuff. Right before I got into the martial arts, the MMA sort of thing, that's when things kind of flopped. But yeah, so it probably was only a few years ago, like you said, sort of thing. And yeah, I definitely have seen kids at the club. And they come in and, and I can see them, I hear their dads are talking with Master Blake or whatever, saying that they're having problems with school and stuff like this. We had one student who was running into a lot of issues and even having, like outbursts at the club and stuff like that. And as, time went on, he's totally switched his demeanor. He's really respectful. All the, all the components of our gym and of our martial arts system, all the respect factors, the bowing and stuff like that. It really teaches these kids, that respect factor, and I think it is important. So for, all those kids who maybe are looking out there for something or struggling with school, maybe go out there and find something, maybe join a gym. Or, maybe if you're a little overweight, maybe, work on that a bit. Do something that makes you confident and that takes away some of your insecurities, and that might be able to help with some of that kind of, anger and stuff like that. That's what I would suggest.
Right.
So
it's also an outlet, though, isn't it?
Yeah, for
you
sure.
You get to punch a bag, or even if you're
absolutely.
rolling with someone and you just
and that's probably a lot of the reason too. I'm so way more laid back as I've gotten older,
right?
Right? Because I'm taking a lot of that out on the bags, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. You were into sports and stuff from the get go.
Yeah, right? I played hockey my whole life. I was a hockey player, probably from the age of 5 on, sort of thing. I was doing skating.
That early?
Yeah, I started skating at like 5.
Did you take after your brother in that, or was
yeah?
that just
So
all
my brother was thrown in hockey first, and he was always the older brother making the rep teams and stuff. So I always wanted to play and make the teams exactly, and it was good. I was always really small, like I said, and a little chubbier, and had a lot of struggles with hockey. When I first started out, I really loved the sport. And then as I got into the teenage years, I think that started to fade a bit.
Okay.
Because back then I thought the world was against me. I'm getting cut from these teams, and my love for the game starting to diminish at that time. And it's actually funny because I played for a few more years in midget, and then I wasn't gonna play after midget. And my dad actually was hunting around for teams and found a couple of teams for me to try out for. And, I said, okay, yeah, I'll go out. And I ended up making one of the teams. And so
this is as a teen?
This was at 18.
Okay.
And I ended up making a junior hockey team. And
nice.
so I started playing for them. But at that time, I really lost, all my passion for the sport. I was just kind of playing because I always wanted to play at a high level. And so I just kind of continued on. But when I was playing and I was skipping practice and not really taking it serious, I just remember looking back and being that 16-year-old kid that was trying to get on the team, and you have these older guys that screwing guys out of spots, sort of thing, not really caring. So I ended up kind of giving up the sport, and that was really tough. And that was about 18, that was about 20, and I was kind of in a tough place. Not too many people know, but quitting hockey was a tough decision for me, and it kind of sent me into a kind of a dark place, sort of thing. I was just kind of working and going to school and just drinking and partying a lot, and that's kind of where I started training seriously. Was at that point I kind of got sick of being just in that state, and I wanted to switch things around, so I started, going full bore.
Just because people watching or listening don't really know, your brother is obviously in jiu-jitsu and martial arts prior to you. You had some exposure. Tell us a little bit about that.
So my brother is actually the guy who got me into it, and he's actually showed me a lot of my my ground game. If you don't know, it's Ryan Christopher. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu.
He'd hate you for that.
Oh, I know.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
What?
I'm getting choked out now. So he was training about 20 or 19 or 20. He started training, and I was in my teenage years, and he was doing jiu-jitsu, and I didn't really take anything of it. And then he started fighting, and I went to a few of his fights, and I always had a thing for fighting. I always liked fighting. So I went and checked him out, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I started going out to jiu-jitsu with Ryan a little more, but never really took it seriously. Back then, I thought I knew everything, and whatever, martial arts aren't cool. Or
the big ego.
Yeah, exactly. So, so my first initial, thing of martial arts was at probably about 15, 16 when Ryan took me out to jiu-jitsu. And then I picked it up again, like I said, after hockey there, and then started training with my brother every day, sort of thing. And then
You took it seriously.
yeah, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu. I got hooked at 19 and was training off the hook after that. And one thing led to another. Ended up meeting Blake, got into kickboxing.
That's Blake Lorette, right?
Yeah, Blake Lorette. That's he's my stand-up coach.
Yeah.
Awesome guy.
Awesome guy,
Man,
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
phenomenal fighter. Holy moly. He's still learning. It's crazy. He still kicks my butt. He's great. So.
So Blake? You said Blake took you to Thailand, right?
Yeah, so I met Blake through Ryan. Actually, Ryan is really good buddies with Blake's wife's brother. So that's how they know each other, sort of thing. They linked up. So I started training with Ryan and Blake out at West Van doing kickboxing at the West Van Martial Arts Club there. So then I was training there for a few months and stuff like that. And I guess Blake was planning on going to Thailand. So I ended up getting onto board with that trip with him and Ryan. And we went there and we were training. And I ended up, Blake asked me if I wanted to take a Thai fight while I was there. And I said, you know what, like, what the heck? I'm in Thailand. Let's do it, right? So I took a Thai fight. Ryan and I both did. And it was at this King's Festival. And I think it was at this small town just outside of Chiang Rai, I believe the town was called. And, it was a crazy experience. They had this huge festival. And they had this ring with, lights in the middle and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I get to go fight in there. And, we before the bell rings, we're doing the typical Thai dance and all that stuff, right? And
you guys, though, you don't train Muay Thai, though. You train kickboxing,
I do train.
right?
So Blake has a background in Muay Thai. So originally I started out with Muay Thai.
Yeah.
But Blake does have some karate and stuff like that in his background as well. So we do train a little bit of that as well. Exactly.
Okay.
We do a mixture, but originally I started out training Muay Thai,
okay.
and going to Thailand and training Muay Thai there. So that's kind of what I started out, and then after that it led into.
So how did that fight go? And the
Thai
fight?
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, it was cool. Before the bell rings, me and the other guy, the other fellow, we're staring at each other, and there's just flies. I remember, this is funny. There's flies all in the middle of the ring, flying around the lights, like tons of them, right? And I remember just staring at them, and it was just surreal. And then the bell goes or whatever, and we start going, and I remember we're like clinching along like the ropes and stuff like that, and you have all these the people grabbing my ankles and like telling me to elbow from the outside of the ring, grabbing my ankles, telling me to elbow him and like knee him and all this stuff, and it was just so crazy. And then in the third round, I ended up. I remember I was a little tired, so I was like I'm coming out to like knock this guy out. I'm just gonna knock him out. I went out and I ended up catching him with a left hook, like right on the button, and dropped him, and then that was it. And I ended up winning, and that was a good feeling, and I think that kind of skyrocketed me, that feeling of that win and getting out of the ring and everyone raising me up and stuff like that. It was cool. So I think that was a big moment for me, getting my MMA career kickstarted for sure. So. Yeah.
That was when you came back and you booked your first
fight.
fight?
Here we go. We're going. Yeah, sort of thing. Started training every day after that because I love that feeling, and then I want to relive that. So I started chasing that again.
So let's talk about your first fight.
Yeah.
Tell us the story. So it's booked, and what, you had a good training camp?
So it's booked, yeah, and I'm having a training camp. I would say it was pretty good. It's my first one, so I'm training super hard.
You've
and
got
I'm
the
like
jitters and
nervous
everything.
and all that stuff. And I don't really know what I'm doing yet. I'm just kind of taking pieces from what everyone else says they've done, like Ryan and
you
Blake
got Curtis around you.
Curtis. So I'm just kind of piecing things together and it was a good camp. I felt good and whatever. So it was against Ali Wasuk, another well-known battlefield fighter here. So we go in there and the bell rings, and it's kind of hard. It was a pretty quick fight, and I just remember I think I was shooting for a takedown, and he snagged a standing guillotine or something like that, right? And that was before I was advanced amateur. It was the beginner amateur.
The novice
amateur rules, the guy he grabbed it right, and he was throwing on the choke, and they stopped it before I tapped or whatever because he saw my face going red or something.
Yelled, no, I remember it
Yeah.
pretty clearly. He yelled, he tapped, and then the referee immediately
Ali
stopped.
did? Ali says
Ali
he
yelled
tapped.
out,
Oh, is
he
that what
tapped.
happened? I didn't
He
even
yelled
know
out,
this
he
part of
tapped,
that.
and then immediately the
Oh.
ref moved in and he stopped the fight. And
Oh,
you
boy.
were confused, right? Because
Yeah,
of
I
what
was
going
pissed
on.
off.
What the
I was
hell
a little
happened?
pissed off, but I kind of understood where he was coming. I didn't know that was what happened. I thought he just stopped it because it was
wasn't-
the
it's-
beginner.
It wasn't that bad, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
learning
well-
for everybody.
Well, it turned out to
Yeah,
be
exactly.
great
I
for
was
you,
just gonna
right?
say,
Right?
a bad situation ended up into a good thing.
Yeah.
Things flipped around for me.
But let's
which was
talk
good,
about
so.
that though. You get in the cage after a glorious win in Thailand, thinking I'm good enough. I'm gonna go out.
Yeah.
And you've got Ryan and Blake who are literally champions, right? These guys are amazing guys, amazing trainers. You come from a good gym. You've got a history of like kind of a lineage of good fighters coming out of there, and you start your MMA career. You get in there, jiu-jitsu guy. Get choked out in 30 seconds, right? I mean, that can't feel too good.
Yeah,
right? So
no,
tell
it's,
us about the feeling and what like the conversations around it as you go back into the dressing room. And
Not too many conversations are going on. More just a lot of pouting and a lot of anger and frustration and disappointment and a mixture of emotions and stuff. It was tough. One good thing too. I've been used to not succeeding and then rebounding through hockey and getting cut from teams. So as much as that was a slap in the face, I've been used to that. And I'm a very competitive guy. So I knew that I could bounce back for sure. And that's what I did, right? Especially after quitting hockey, I knew that was a tough thing to do, and I'm never gonna.
So I'm not quitting again,
nothing
right?
again.
Yeah.
I will ever stop, right? So
Yeah.
it's exactly. So yeah, I ended up rebounding, and it gave me a good fire in my belly. That fight, it really was like, hey man, like you gotta smarten up, and you gotta train harder, and you gotta get back in there, and you gotta redeem yourself, sort of thing. And then that's exactly what I did. So.
And
Yeah.
you bounce back, and you've had 6 wins in a row.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it's been going good. Yeah, exactly. Bounce back, and 6 fights here down now in a row. So, gonna keep plugging away here and then keep getting those victories. So, yeah.
Awesome. What would you say right now in terms of your combat career, right? Your MMA career. What would you say is the biggest weakness that you're working on? Not necessarily. I'm not talking about techniques and whatnot. Just mindset and.
Yeah. Let me think here. I think probably just maybe some of my organizational planning of camp could be improved upon. It's been hard previously with work, taking on MMA as I do work full time as well, right? In the beginning, it was really hard, and I'm still improving my organizational skills. But that's been a big thing for me during camps, is being able to work around work and fitting in, all my training to have a full camp.
So scheduling everything
Exactly.
properly.
So exactly, I would say that has been my biggest weakness in the past, and it's still a point that I'm improving on going forward. And it always will be. Every camp I see myself adding more and more and finding myself, becoming more organizational and stuff like that. So it's definitely one of my focuses is that as well. So
Awesome. How would you say your mindset as a fighter has improved from, if you look at your first fight against Ali or even the second one, right? You're just walking in, you're getting settled in, you're learning what this game is like, to now that you're a champ, you're holding the belt, and you're going in defending your belts. What is that? How has your mindset changed?
I think the biggest change in my mindset would be not worrying about the little things in camp. Not letting these little injuries or little tiny things that have nothing to do with your overall your training regime and stuff like that, and letting those things get to you and throwing you off your game, sort of thing. And I think the more I fight and the more I go through these experiences in camp, the more I'm able to tune those things out and focus on the things that I need to have a successful training
So
camp.
you're more focused on the end result, and you're
Exactly.
looking at the big picture a
Yeah,
little bit.
and I'm not
right?
letting these little influences on the way, get in the way, throw me off, or little distractions, upset,
Yeah.
throw me into
Well, speaking of the big picture, where do you see this going? Is this a hobby for you? How do you feel about this whole thing?
You know, it was a hobby kind of starting out, but fighting has always been a passion of mine. I've always been getting into, you know, the odd scuffle, even growing up and stuff like that. So I think that there's something to fighting. I've always believed for me. So I think it's something that I will be pursuing, and it's something, you know, that I'm gonna try to see out for sure going forward.
So you see yourself going pro and continuing down that way?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, what do you think is going to contribute to your success the most? You've seen, obviously, Curtis is the prime example. He's had its ups and downs. Hopefully, we'll get him in here and we'll have an interview. We'll get him to talk about his ups and downs for sure. But he's your training partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's one of the key guys that's always there. You've seen how this game can have these ups and downs, and it's brutal on the body.
Yeah.
How are you planning to? Is there a strategy that you have that you're going to go about and do this? What are your thoughts around?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I want to, like I said, I want to pursue this, and I want to have a successful and healthy, you know, career. And as I do go through these camps, like you said, you know, your body's getting broken down, stuff like that, but you learn to train smart instead of, you know, overtraining and stuff like that. I'd still say sometimes I overtrain a little bit, but I'm getting better at reading myself. Like I said, martial arts really gets you in tune with yourself, and I'm getting better at being able to read my body, you know, when I need to take a break or, you know, so I think just the main thing that's gonna help with that is just experience. It's just going through it, and like I said, this is a journey for me. This is my first go with MMA, so it's a learning curve here, and I'm just going through and I'm learning things as I go. So like I said, I think experience would be the key to that. So
Awesome. If someone's listening, watching, they want to get a hold of you, they want to get in touch with you. Social media, websites, whatever you want to shout out, go ahead.
yeah, I'd say the best bet would be Instagram. If you want to follow along with me, that's at TayChrisJits. On Instagram, that's probably my best bet. That's the one I use the most. You know, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. I'm not too big on. So
Sweet.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out, man. Appreciate it.
alrighty, thanks.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Thanks.